To me, the most impressive part of it all is the decision making. I mean, he's making the right decisions, and I think people forget he's a third-year quarterback. It's not a guy who's got a ton of experience.
Appreciate you streaming on in here on Birds 365. Not surprising, we've got a bunch of people streamed in with us today because we're talking about the 7-0 Birds. If you like the Eagles, feel free to like McMullen and McDonald. Hit that like button. Like, share, and subscribe to us here on Birds 365. And like, share, and subscribe to Chris Franklin, who looks like, again, are you outdoors or you got the screened-in porch going?
Oh, screened in porch. It's close to I'm going right now, Well, yeah.
Chilly out. Playing hurt too, Chris Franklin. So we thank you for coming on. Hope you're feeling better. I hope you're feeling as good as the Eagles, but that's probably not possible at this stage.
Well, I think I'm looking at the injury report. I think it'll be day to day. I should be available for this upcoming night. And
short week, man. Short week.
Yeah, man. Words wise, always be leery about the cheesesteak egg rolls on a food truck. And I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we're going food poisoning. All right.
Oh God.
Well, that's better.
All right, I'm gonna start you with a hypothetical question because I love them. They're sports talk staples. Sometimes they're not even close to being based in reality, but who the hell cares? 8 weeks ago, before the season started, the Eagles are getting ready for their first game. If you were to have projected what you thought a contract extension for Jalen Hurts would have looked like, and now 8 weeks later, after starting 7-0 and being a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League, how much of a difference is there in dollars and cents? How high has I gotten for Jalen Hurts on his next contract with the Philadelphia Eagles?
If you would have asked me during training camp, I would have thought maybe like the range of 36, 37. Now you're looking around 43 to 45 just by what he's been showing so far and what the future projection is with this offense because they're all still young. And he's going to put up numbers if these guys continue to gel and get chemistry and stay together, especially his receiving core. Those numbers are going to continually go up. So you're looking out, we're probably saying like 4 or 5 years from now, 45 million, that's all they got him for? And then now I think he's on that type of projection.
Yeah. When you talk about his development, Chris, and he mentioned this a little bit after the game, we all knew he had the skills from a mobility standpoint. And I think a lot of people said, well, if he could develop into a pocket passer, and you see some of those shot throws to A.J. Brown down the field in the bucket, he's done an impressive job with that. But to me, the most impressive part of it all is the decision making. I mean, he's making the right decisions, and I think people forget he's a third-year quarterback. It's not a guy who's got a ton of experience. He's really advanced when it comes to – I saw some good things from Kenny Pickett yesterday, believe it or not. I said, well, you know what? If he can get some experience – but, man, I mean, young quarterbacks just are I don't know. I don't want to use the term dumb, but they make some dumb decisions. He 2 turnovers through the whole season. It seems like he always makes the right decision. That to me has been the most impressive part of his advancement as a player.
It's that calmness that he's been displaying because I think a lot of times when you see guys 340 pounds coming at you, like, I don't used to worry about bleep. And again, you start doing the scramble drills. Like, I'm not getting hit by that guy. You see guys, rookie, especially younger quarterbacks, throwing it up there. And I think that's the one key thing. I think that when it comes to his demeanor, that's the biggest thing I think that separates him from some of the other guys. Those guys, when in front of the cameras and you look in front and talking to us, so they're like, oh no, I don't. It doesn't phase you one bit. Meanwhile, you go back and you look back and like, oh my goodness, it's going to happen. Oh my god, I don't know which way it's going to come. But it seems like what hurts, it just has that demeanor that helps him. I think when he sees pressure like that, he just uses it. It also helps that he has the legs to be able to escape and scramble that too. But overall, I think when you look at the familiarity he has with this offense and that demeanor, I think you see the results you're getting right now.
And he didn't even have to do that yesterday. He had one designated run and one other one where he turned the ball upfield, made a couple of yards. They didn't even need his running aspect of his strength, his game in his bag of tricks yesterday. I know the Eagles were very good. Steelers were pretty damn bad. What the hell has happened to the Steelers? They've come apart pretty quickly. I know John was just talking about rookie quarterback as compared to a veteran guy like Ben Roethlisberger, but I didn't think Ben was very good last year. How bad was that defense yesterday? I know the Eagles picked it apart. Don't want to shortchange the Eagle offense, but Steelers defense gave Jalen no pressure in the backfield.
Well, I think you see when it comes to Watt not being on the field, the impact that he has on that defense. I also think that the one thing, if I'm the Steelers looking right now, they need cornerbacks. I think that's the only thing that's holding back the Steelers defense. When you don't have, well, two things. When Watt comes back to the field, I think they'll be okay. They'll be average just because of the pressure he does. But I think they look at the cornerback position for them. I mean, it struggles. Witherspoon just basically
Yeah, I was
yesterday.
disappointed.
People saying, "Well, he had the hamstring." Well, it's that was good.
I was disappointed in the way Minka Fitzpatrick played because I knew they didn't have much at corner, but I said, "Well, Minka's a good player. He'll settle things down." He's not playing well either. So when your good players aren't playing well, you got an issue. But yeah, you lose TJ Watt. I mean, they came into that game. Obviously, TJ, I think he had 22 and a half sacks last season, defensive player of the year. They had 5 sacks in 6 games. I think it was a little disappointing that Pittsburgh got 3 sacks because they haven't been getting any pressure. But Jalen took the credit for that, the blame for that. Actually, he held on to the football too long. So that's another thing you love about Jalen Hurts is his accountability. And then you see it trickle down to the rest of the roster. Well, if the quarterback is doing this, I think it really shows up in the rest of the team. And I think the best evidence to that, Chris, A.J. Brown, the first player to talk to us on the podium, and he didn't want to talk about his good plays. He wanted to talk about the stuff he left on the field, the drop, and when he got caught from behind. It's a little thing, but I think it's a thing that really shows you why the Eagles are 7-0.
Yeah, they want to become complacent because when you start looking at it, I mean, you're wrong. Maybe that's why I'm not. I probably looking at it on 7. Like, you know what? I feel good. You know, they start coasting, and they're not being complacent. They want to make sure that they continue to stretch, and it's a mentality aspect. I think a lot of that is, and you got to look at football character when you're scouting a lot of these guys, and I think that's when you start to give a little front office a little bit credit on that one too. And I think also it's the coaching staff. I think that's that link beforehand because you can have all the character guys, but you get around with some other guys like, oh, okay, well they do this and this, but I think the coaching staff, especially Nick Sirianni, with that keeping them focused, has done a good job.
Want to flip it over to the defense? Another big sack game for the Eagles, and again, Gannon pushed the right buttons. Brought the blitz, didn't bring it every single time, brought it at the appropriate time. TJ Gardner off the corner. They got there 5 times yesterday. They're doing the job. But up until they went out, they were doing it with Jordan Davis. High ankle sprain. You guys will get more details today. He's going to miss games. We don't know how. He's certainly going to miss Thursday night, short week. How much of him coming out of the lineup hurts Eagles defense, Chris?
I think it changes a lot because when you saw how much they like to use that 5-man line, especially with him in there, and you started to see him sprinkle a little bit more. You started seeing him ratcheting up a little more. He was on with the 4-man group as well too. So you start to see that transition going to the more he can take on 2 blockers and open up those scraping and shuffle lanes for the linebackers to get home on a run game. I think that's huge. And I think overall, when you look at his development, overall, he's going to miss at least 4 weeks. I mean, for them, I thought initially when he got it, I thought it was going to be worse because I thought it was like, oh, man, he broke his foot or it's Liz Frank or something like that, and he's gone. So I think when you look overall, you're going to miss him in the run game, and it hurts. I think when it comes to that rotational depth too. So it's going to put a lot of Hargrave and Cox.
Yeah, and if you go back to last season, one of the reasons Jordan Davis is here is because Fletcher is not a 0 or 1 technique. J-Bond is not. So they don't have a player like Jordan Davis. I guess you can try McMullen Tui Pelotu. This could be a big deal. He doesn't play a lot, but there's sort of a domino to what, and JG's talked about this a lot. Like Jody's talking about the sacks. Well, the way you get to the sacks, the way you get to the blitzing is making it 2nd and 10 or 3rd and 11. And Jordan Davis is a big part of that. He might only be out there for one play. But if you stop the run, now if you're in a bunch of 2nd and shorts, 3rd and shorts, and an offense is on schedule, so to speak, that's what the Eagles struggled with last year. Am I being alarmist?
No, because I think when you look at Marlon Pelotu, when he was in there, when it came to those those big man fronts, he got pushed off the ball too much. He continually got sucked in when it comes there for it. Offensive line got in there and they were running, having their way with it. Especially when you look at that second team unit, the beta unit, whatever they call it, when it comes to the second rush line, the teams always seem to have success when it came to running the ball because you didn't have Jordan Davis in there. He's running with the one. So I think it's a big. Over time, I think it's going to be a bigger loss. And then you hope you have when you see teams like the Titans, where you have Derrick Henry come back. You hope you have him back by then because he's a guy space eater. You use him for that. So over time, I think you're going to see how important he was, even though he was a rookie.
All right, I'm going to put both you guys to the test here. Eagles lost one of their motivating factors yesterday when the Giants lost. So they now have a 2-game cushion in the division, 2.5 over Dallas, and Dallas is actually in second place because they got the head-to-head win with the Cowboys. The Texans are the Texans. I know it's a road game, but at least the Steelers are the Steelers, and they've got some history, and you can talk about championships and like. What about the Texans scares anybody? What is Nick Sirianni going to use as motivation with this team this week? I know they're as good as they are, and I said earlier they throw their helmets out on the field. They should be able to beat the Texans. What card does Nick play as far as motivation goes this week?
That's a good question. I think it's going to be one of the ones you least expected, because how many times have we seen a lot of these teams go on these runs, or even look at yesterday? I think everything I thought in some of those games that were going on, you never know what this outcome's going to be. I think he's going to be you can't undermine your. That's the only thing I can think of, because I look at that like Davis Mills. Nah. You look across the board. Nico Collins, no. So I think it's going to be one of the things the Eagles can't beat themselves, and also having I know they have to travel on a short week. That's a big thing too. I mean, we were in the locker room yesterday. We saw all the massage tables and the bikes and everything else. They
were right at it after the game.
Yeah, it's a travel. You got a travel day too, so you lose an extra day. You have to travel on Wednesday. You go on Thursday. That's a lot of tough factors to go in. But it's
what will they do without walkthrough Wednesday? They're going to be flying Wednesday. No walkthrough Wednesday. It's going to throw them off schedule.
Maybe do a walkthrough on the plane. Do a little.
So do the Russell Wilson and just run it.
The walkthrough on the plane. I think what Jody said is the plan. Just throw your helmets out there. That should be able to get it.
It'd probably be a better running game that the Texans have, but that's a whole other thing. But, yeah.
The Thursday games are basically very simple game plans because nobody has time to practice. It is better to be at home than on the road. This is a pretty long trip for a Thursday night game, to be honest. And if it were any kind of reputable foe, I would be very, very concerned about this spot going that far in a short week. But man, Houston just has nothing.
And there's another factor you got to figure in too, because the coach, Sirianni Saikin probably had a little say, but they were pretty much focused on this game against the Steelers. So you're relying a lot on your quality control coaches and your offensive assistants to basically come up with a game plan for this, and you're hoping that what they saw to advance it is good enough to go ahead and beat it. So there's so many factors going on. I don't think it's going to be cake. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than what people think it is. I don't think it's going to be, wow, I think when we come back here, you go look like wow, they won 23-20 against the Texans now, but I think Texas is going to have a little fight to them. I think the Eagles might be a little worn down, given they're a little over team at some positions.
Shame on
As
me.
a real quick, as a little follow up. Sorry, Jody.
Okay.
Nick would never admit this, but I want to throw to you. You mentioned the quality control coaches, so they had the bye week, and those guys were doing a lot of work. You think the Eagles hate to admit they look ahead even a day, never mind a week. But do you think they kind of double game planned Pittsburgh and Houston because of they're not very good, to be honest? And maybe you took a little advantage of the schedule and said, you know what? Hey, quality control coach number one, why don't you see what Houston's doing a little bit and start on that? You think maybe they went about it that way because they had some extra time?
I remember talking to an NFL coach. I think during the combine, and they were saying like when it comes to these short games, they're doing like 2-3 weeks ahead in advance. Like they'll have their base assessments, what they're doing, what they want to have, and then they'll give it to the thing like okay, to give it to quality controls. Hey, check to see if this is right, and then they come back that way too. Now, granted, that was for that one team when it came there, so I could see them doing something like that where you may have had Nick going. Hey, we got this. We had, but even though they're bye week, hey, we got the Texans coming up this short week. I want you to look at this package, see what it has, and give me an overall good assessment. This is where I think remember last year, I think it was or the year before, last year, Jim Bob Cooter. This is where we did test where Jim Bob
Yeah.
Cooter pretty much came up with that game plan on the short week for Thursday. I forget who the opponent was. So you're gonna I don't know if it's Patullo this week. I don't know if it's strictly on the quality assistant coach, the quality control coaches, but it's a big thing. You start that's your coaching depth too.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
two things I want to get in here, one of which I needed to look up. Eagles, Texans, early line for Thursday game. Eagles minus 13. They're almost
13.
a 2-touchdown favorite on the road. That doesn't
Ooh,
happen. You'll be a
13,
2-touchdown favorite at home. Not usually on the road. The Eagles are a 13-point choice early line against the Texans. And speaking
Ooh.
of Jim Bob Cooter and guys showing up at camp, I know they've got a bunch of regular season games to play and then playoff games and maybe a game in Arizona before we ever get back to camp. Do you think there's a chance that Frank Reich could be one of those guest coaches in camp this season? Because I'm telling you what, that Indianapolis Colts team doesn't look like a playoff team to me, and they've got an impetuous owner. You think Frank Reich is going to be available to lend a helping hand in Eagle camp next year?
See, part of me really thinks he's going to be back. I don't know what part of me. Maybe it's the part that still gets in an egg roll part in my brain or whatever it is. But part of me thinks he's still saying he's in Indianapolis. I think he getting dealt with a bad hand. I know. Well, he's been given a bad quarterback besides Wentz, who he basically picked and said, "Oh no, he vouched for. I was bad." But when it sounds like Irsay had told him to put Erlinger instead of Matt Ryan because of financial reasons, and you got guys getting banged up. Your best player, Jonathan Taylor, keeps getting hurt. Part of me wants to say that one. I think they're going to need a veteran guy eventually because I think this coaching staff is going to get rated after this season. I think you're going to need two coordinators. You're going to need. I think Patullo may go. I think you may see other guys like Brian Johnson. Maybe he gets a shot at college or becomes an offensive coordinator somewhere else. Like I think this coaching staff is going to get rated big time. So
That's
I think
true.
Frank might be around for 1 year. If I had to guess right now, ask me about week 14, 15, you go like, oh goodness, what do I say in this one? But I think Frank might. For now, I think Frank has maybe one more year after this.
Okay.
Maybe.
NFL, somebody gave Frank a vote of confidence. I don't know if it was just an NFL.com report or if Jim Irsay actually said something, but he got the dreaded vote of confidence. So we'll see how that shakes out. Chris Ballard as well, who's very highly regarded. I know, Chris, that Nick Sirianni actually gets upset when you talk about the problems Indianapolis has had at quarterback, mainly because of Phillip Rivers. And he'll joke that, Phillip Rivers got two people jobs in this league and everybody thinks, but the problem is he retired, Phillip Rivers, but he played very well. The problem with the Colts is they got to get a young quarterback and go through you're going to go through some growing pains like Pittsburgh's doing with Kenny Pickett. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. but you can't bring in some 38-year-old guy who's going to go coach high school football the next year. That's not going to be sustainable.
Why do I have a feeling I could see him as a quarterbacks coach? Because he's got his feet wet doing a head coaching job down there. I want to say like Alabama, Mississippi, one of those southern states down there.
I'll tell
Why
you
do I
what,
have a
Nick
feeling
would
like he's
hire
like that one?
yesterday. Yesterday.
He's got. I think next year. Who knows? That's hot. But I don't know what this infatuation is with the young coaches. I don't know if anybody wants to find. Oh, I want to find the guy who's the next McVay and everything else. There's a lot of quality guys that are out there right now. I think we can still learn from Jim Caldwell for the life of me. I don't know why he doesn't have a job. I think he's a really good guy. I would love to see him as an offensive coordinator candidate. I think he's got a lot of stuff when it comes to developing quarterbacks, when it comes to scheming, when it comes to working along with that. So I think he would be a good option. But you got a lot of veteran guys I wouldn't mind seeing come in here too. But this infatuation with I gotta find a 31-year-old guy who hasn't really experienced life because most of the time they're being inside the coaching things. I think you need a couple of veterans on that staff.
Which, by the way, Sean McVay, offensive genius. I'm not seeing it this year. All of a sudden, he's not the brightest bulb on Broadway anymore. So these guys can shine bright for a period of time, then all of a sudden they come back.
Yeah, everybody gets caught up to Jim is a really good coach, but I think he's the opposite end of the spectrum. I think he's hurt by his age on the other end. You know, I don't know how old he is now, but he's over 65. So you know, people look at it, they want somebody who's going to be there for 20 years, even though nobody's ever there for 20 years. Well, Belichick, Andy Reid, you know, they're all like, we want to have this guy and play. It just doesn't work that way. So, you know, I don't know much, but it's worked for the Eagles. Look, I said when the Eagles put together this coaching staff, I wasn't the only one. I said, where's the experience? You know, these guys have never done anything, but it's worked. And now they're the staff. And, you know, if this keeps going, Shane Steichen's not going to be here next year. And Jonathan Gannon's not going to be here next year. Simple as that.
No,
if this
I'm
keeps
telling
going
you,
the way it's going.
Plug Frank Reich in. And I like Frank. I know you guys know Frank better. I haven't covered the team. Where is he? I do not think he's surviving Indianapolis. I think that when the Eagles put the beat down on the Colts, and I think they're going to, that could be the final straw that punches Frank's ticket back here to Philadelphia.
Well, the beauty of Nick Sirianni, he's got this. I mean, if Shane gets a job,
he will.
Kevin Patullo is going to be the offensive coordinator. I mean, I guarantee that right now. Defensively, I don't know. That's a little bit different because obviously that's not his purview. You know, would they just elevate Denard Wilson? Maybe. They might go that route. I would think they're more likely to go that route than go outside the building. Wouldn't you, Chris?
Well, I think it's going to be it may, who knows, it might be an either or. Like if you take Kevin Patullo, maybe Shane takes Brian Johnson if you think Brian Johnson's going in the future, or maybe if Nick goes, hey, you know what, you can take Patullo, I'll use Brian Johnson. I think it's going to be one of those either or things with them because I think Johnson's starting to get a little bit of a push now.
Anymore. I know Sean McVay lost. Obviously, Kevin O'Connell was doing a good job. I don't know how, but he was allowed to take, I think, one coach, and he took Wes Phillips. I don't think he was allowed to take anybody else. So they kind of clamp down on those things now. I don't think Nick would be allowing Shane to take like any high profile guys. Now with Brian Johnson, you can't block him, right? If he's going offensive coordinator job, you know, and you're not going to give it to him here, there's nothing you can do. But yeah, I mean, they're going to lose a lot of coaches if things keep going this way. And that's going to be maybe the biggest test for Nick Sirianni because we saw it with Andy Reid. Andy Reid had one of the best coaching staffs ever in the history of football. I don't know how many head coaches came off his first staff here, but it was astonishing. I'd have to look it up. It's
and
6
still
or
coaching
7.
too. Look at Harbaugh. Yeah. Harbaugh's coaching, head coach. You got Rivera as a head coach. You said they were just embarrassment of riches on that. And you look how many guys still defense. Sean McDermott. You got so many guys that come at staff. That's the only thing to test that depth. And I wonder if that's why you're getting some of these guys, these younger assistants, enough time right now to help to prepare them, because you may be leaning on them next year. It's crazy.
Give Andy credit, and I remember handling that story on the air on WIP, that when he got the job, how do you hire this guy? He had binders on top of binders of how he would build his coaching staff before he ever got the job. He was ready to build that coaching staff. So give credit where credit is due. All right, last one for me, Chris. My partner on CBS asked me this yesterday. When can we officially start to talk about not just the fact that the Eagles are 17-0, but there's an eventual number at the back end that if they go undefeated and equal and surpass what the Dolphins did last team to go undefeated, the biggest season in the history of the National Football League. When is it realistic? When is it fair to start that conversation? I said yesterday, always previous to me, it had been you need to hit double digits. You got to get to 10-0 before I'm going to truly sink my teeth into that conversation. Some people say the halfway mark, which now is 9 because they got the goofy 17 games, not an even number. When is it fair to actually, because if we open up these floodgates, it could get nuts around here in Philadelphia, that we start talking about, this team could go all year without losing a game.
I think you have, for me personally, I think you do it after the Titans game, because I think that's when you start to go through. In all honesty, that's when you start to look at it, because then you start looking at when you have to play the Giants again and then the Cowboys. So I think once you get towards the beginning of that stretch, where you're thinking like, okay, they beat the Titans team, because I used to think it was going to be the Packers, but we've seen the way they've been playing lately, and they don't strike fear anymore. That all of a sudden, when you look at the schedule beforehand, you're like, oh, that's like the scheduled losses. I've had that as a scheduled loss. Like, well, now that's winnable. And Titans you just don't know because of the run game and stuff like that. So I think when you start to look at that Giants game, the way the Giants are playing right now, I want to move it to the Giants game, because if they beat the Giants the first time, which they should, get rid of the roster, but Giants are hanging around, then that's where I think you really start to really look like, okay, this team actually might legit go undefeated if they don't rest their guys too. Like, if they play that balance of resting the guys versus
you got to talk
playoffs.
about rest too. Yeah, how would Nick handle that? That's a good point. At C Franklin News, read Chris and NJ.com. I think that was the spirit of Nick Sirianni squawking at you, saying, "Don't look ahead. Don't look ahead. Don't talk about perfect season. Win the day."
Yeah, that bird mentality.
Completely different bird translator. I thought they were saying now. You can start talking about 20 now. Yes. That's what I heard the bird say. McMullen heard something else.
I like that bird mentality. And by the way, here it is: Brad Childress, David Culley, Pat Shermer, Ron Rivera, Leslie Frazier, Steve Spagnuolo, John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, all became head coaches from Andy's first staff. Rod Dodhauer was here as the offensive coordinator. He was a head coach before that.
Previously, right.
Yeah, and Jim Johnson obviously never wanted to become a head coach, but probably could have become a head coach. What an amazing coaching staff.
What about that Juan Castillo defensive coordinator? Was that going to set him up to become a head coach too?
Yeah, Juan was there as well.
Good offensive coach.
That didn't work out well, but Juan was a very good offensive line coach.
He was very good. Between look at the team and the offensive line coaches, you have him, then Howard Mudd, then Stoutland. That's a heck of a run they had. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Stoutland flying under the radar this week. Because
he's the Jim Johnson of this staff.
Yep. He'll work it out. Okay.
Didn't have to bring up Stoutland U this week because it was all about the passing game and Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. Chris Franklin, tell the birds we said thank you for contributing to today's show.
They said thanks. Oh, now they want to get quiet. Thanks.
And we always say thank you to you, bud, when you come on. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks, pal.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one now.